Have you heard about the recent major actions in South Korea? They claim to overcome China's interference and threats and maintain a top 10 global economic and military position. When I heard this, I couldn't help but wonder, is it South Korea saying this or am I listening to lines from Game of Thrones? South Korea, this small country, stands tall and makes me feel like I'm watching a modern version of the movie 300. Yesterday, we discussed how you can find Korean food, K-food, in every corner of the world. Their Samsung phones are also ubiquitous, like that friend who is always by your side, ready to help you find the nearest K-food restaurant. Furthermore, South Korea wants to learn the survival wisdom from Europe and survive in the midst of great power competition. It's like me at work, always maneuvering between the boss and colleagues. I just want to say, it's not just wisdom, it's an art of life. So, regarding South Korea's ambitious moves, I just want to say, you truly have courage, you are real warriors. Whether it's the dreams of a small country, the challenges of a brave warrior, or the leadership of change, I believe that in the days to come, you will bring us more surprises. Just don't forget, I'm still waiting for my K-food. Samsung has relocated its production base from China to a third country. I think it's like they have finally freed themselves from the constraints of home, opened the door, and ventured out into the world. The Wall Street Journal even referred to Samsung as a case study for manufacturing companies on how to leave China. Now all manufacturing companies are looking towards them, like Optimus Prime from Transformers, expecting them to lead us towards a new future. So, let's applaud for South Korea and Samsung. Because they are the soul of the underdog player, the giant hidden in the heritage, the little stone pressed down but daring to rise. I believe that in the days to come, they will bring us more surprises. Let's look forward to it together. Recently, CIA Director Bill Burns secretly visited China, which reminds me of an old joke. Do you know how secret the CIA's secret visits are? So secret that they don't even know where they went themselves. Laughter. And do you know this is the highest level visit by US officials to China in recent years? It's like when you haven't seen your friend for a long time and suddenly invite them out, just to tell them, hey, I know our relationship is tense, but I still want to be friends with you. Hello everyone, I am your news anchor, Yali. We provide you with a one-stop service for China-related news every day. This is something you can't find anywhere else. If you have any thoughts or ideas about these topics, feel free to leave a comment in the comment section. We will carefully read and reply to everyone's comments. According to the Financial Times, CIA Director Bill Burns secretly visited China last month and held talks with Chinese officials. This is the highest level visit by Biden administration officials to China in recent years. Former CIA official Wyden said that sending Burns on a secret visit to China shows President Biden's concerns about the deteriorating U.S.-China relations, and silent secret diplomatic channels between the United States and China have a long history, especially during times of tension. Earlier, Austin had hoped to have a sideline meeting with the Chinese defense minister during the dialogue, but was rejected by the Chinese side. Austin expressed regret over the Chinese side's refusal and said, I welcome any opportunity to engage with Minister Li Shangfu. I think it's important that defense departments have regular communications with each other, or at least have open lines of communication. Chinese Defense Minister Li Shangfu and U.S. Defense Secretary Austin attended the Shangri-La Dialogue Welcome Dinner in Singapore on June 2. U.S. Defense Secretary Austin took the initiative to approach Chinese Defense Minister Li Shangfu at the dinner and greeted him with a handshake. They exchanged brief greetings, and Li Shangfu said to Austin through a translator, Nice to meet you, Secretary Austin. Austin then walked away. There was no further interaction between the two. In recent weeks, there have been frequent meetings between U.S. and Chinese officials, indicating that the two countries are making efforts to ease tensions. Prior to this, both sides had been blaming each other and had suspended high-level contacts for several months. Although returning to the negotiating table on some issues, the Chinese government has adopted a more assertive posture. Beijing is skeptical of Washington's sincerity and has taken measures to counter U.S. technology export controls and has called for the lifting of sanctions on Chinese officials. After concluding his visits to Ukraine, Russia, and other countries, Chinese Special Envoy Li Wei held a press conference in Beijing. He criticized the U.S. media's claim that his proposed ceasefire would allow Russia to control parts of Ukraine's territory. However, when asked about China's position on the issue of Ukraine's occupied territories, he did not give a direct response. He said that he is considering a second trip to Europe to mediate the Russia-Ukraine conflict. Although Li Wei returned to Beijing, stating that there are many obstacles to achieving peace in the Russia-Ukraine war, we still hope that all parties can resolve the dispute through dialogue and negotiations. Is China's role in international affairs becoming more passive? The European Union has demanded the removal of Chinese and Russian software equipment and platforms from its entire territory to ensure the security of elections. The United States and Taiwan have signed the Taiwan-US 21st Century Trade Initiative as the first batch of agreements. Taiwan considers this a significant and comprehensive achievement in trade negotiations between Taiwan and the United States since 1979. However, Beijing has criticized the agreement as the latest evidence of the United States undermining the One China principle. Nevertheless, we believe that this will help strengthen the economic ties between Taiwan and the United States and enhance Taiwan's ability to resist economic coercion from China. We hope that all parties can achieve win-win outcomes through cooperation. The United States is establishing forward bases in Asia to address the threat of Chinese missiles and has set its sights on China's nuclear arsenal. Small airports like Lalo Airport in the Philippines are among the increasing number of forward bases the U.S. military is establishing in the Asia-Pacific region to counter China's growing military challenges. This is also a measure taken by the United States to reduce its heavy reliance on large military bases. With China's missile arsenal expanding and its technology becoming more advanced, these bases are increasingly vulnerable. A new report shows that the Chinese government and companies are intensifying efforts to collect publicly available data from the Pentagon, think tanks, and private companies. The analysis suggests that mining open-source information sources can give China an advantage in gathering intelligence on the United States and its allies. Most of the content that Beijing extracts from open-source data is likely to be in the hands of individual Chinese spy agencies. However, analysts from Recorded Future state that Chinese intelligence agencies operate independently and do not share information. Compared to seeking classified information from sister spy agencies, it may be easier for some intelligence agencies within the People's Liberation Army to develop open-source information about U.S. capabilities. Remember to like, share, and subscribe to our channel. In China, the security measures for the 34th anniversary of the June 4th incident, Tiananmen Square massacre, are comparable to those of the 20th Party Congress. The administrators of official accounts have been instructed to pay attention to the direction of previous content and comments. Content that includes, but is not limited to, candle emojis, ambiguous numbers, slogans, tank images, old photos, Hong Kong actors, and images depicting crowds in a row, is strictly prohibited. This leads us to wonder whether these measures reflect the government's fear of history. On the eve of the 34th anniversary of the June 4th incident, strict control measures prohibiting public gatherings have been implemented in various parts of China. Dissidents in Beijing, such as Cha Jiangguo, disabled June 4th survivors like Qi Zhiyong, and independent journalist Gao Yu, have been taken on trips to Henan. Church members in Chengdu have been subjected to police control, and the human rights seminar in Guizhou has faced suppression. Hong Kong is no longer allowed to hold commemorative activities for the June 4th incident. Since the enactment of the national security law in 2020, publicly mourning the June 4th incident has become difficult. During this year's June 4th period, Victoria Park, where candlelight vigils were held, was used by pro-Beijing organizations to celebrate Hong Kong's return to Chinese sovereignty. The Hong Kong government prohibited the lighting of candles, and screenings of films about the June 4th incident in cinemas were also halted. This has left people feeling very disappointed. Although large-scale June 4th gatherings are difficult under the current political situation, people will find their own ways to commemorate. Former members and volunteers of the Hong Kong Alliance in support of patriotic democratic movements of China continue to guard this forgotten history in their own ways. We are grateful for their efforts. Chinese overseas students will commemorate the June 4th incident in their own ways and voice their opposition to authoritarianism. This is a courageous action, and we hope they receive more support and attention. We must also mention the June 4th Museum in New York. After being closed for 2 years, this memorial museum is now open to the public. It will be the world's only permanent exhibition dedicated to the June 4th incident, showcasing the history of China's democratic movement and the atrocities of the Chinese Communist regime. This reminds us of the brave student leaders who fought for freedom and democracy but were ultimately suppressed by the Chinese Communist regime. It is an important commemorative event, and we hope that more people can learn the truth about the June 4th incident. We should also mention the awareness of the post-2000 generation in China about the June 4th incident. Due to the influence of Red education and the Great Firewall, many young people lack knowledge about history. However, we believe that there are no impenetrable walls, not even firewalls. Huang Yicheng, a participant in the White Paper movement, stated that the June 4th incident holds great significance for him and is a reflection and awakening regarding the current political situation in China. We also look forward to more young people understanding the truth about the June 4th incident and contributing to China's democratization process. On the eve of the 34th anniversary of the June 4th incident, a stage play called May 35th was performed in Taipei, Taiwan. The play focuses on the Tiananmen mothers and reflects how the Chinese Communist Party has been erasing and whitewashing the memory of the June 4th incident. The founder of the theater troupe, Zhang Boyuan, expressed his hope to commemorate the spirit of the June 4th incident through this play. Human Rights Watch, an international human rights organization, has also issued a statement on the eve of the 34th anniversary of the June 4th incident, urging the Chinese government to acknowledge its responsibility for the mass killings of pro-democracy demonstrators and provide compensation to the victims and their families. This is a strong condemnation of the Chinese government. Recently, the road sign for the 4 communications bridge outside Beijing was removed, and major online maps like Baidu and a map no longer indicate the location of the bridge. Netizens have been discussing this, with some speculating about what the government fears and others wondering if they will rename the 4 communications bridge or even demolish it. This leads us to think, will people forget history if Shanghai loses a Urumqi road and Beijing loses a 4 communications bridge? We hope the government will face history and not attempt to cover up the truth. In addition, well-known blogger Ruan Shulwin has been sentenced to 7 years in prison for inciting subversion of state power. His wife, Bai Junying, has been advocating for her husband's freedom, but recently she has lost contact with the outside world. It is rumored that she has been taken away by the Shanghai Road Police Station in Yangpu District, Shanghai, but the police station has denied it. This is a worrying development, and we hope she is safe. The live-action Disney film, The Little Mermaid, with a black actress in the lead role, faced criticism from Chinese state media for being overly politically correct and having lazy storytelling techniques. Behind this event, there are deeper issues at play. Chinese state media, Global Times, claimed that a US-funded laboratory in Kazakhstan is researching deadly pathogens that could be used for terrorist attacks. However, the Kazakhstani government stated that the laboratory's practices are actually the opposite, with scientists working to prevent the misuse of these pathogens and focusing on preventing the next pandemic. A Chinese state media poll showed that 70% of global citizens oppose NATO's involvement in the Asia-Pacific region. China hopes that the C-919, an aircraft developed domestically, will break the monopoly of Boeing and Airbus in the trillion-dollar aviation market and even replicate the success of China's high-speed rail. However, unlike high-speed rail, the key components of large aircraft still rely on European and American suppliers. Some argue that under the increasingly tense geopolitical landscape, the risk of technological bottlenecks looms. While the C-919 has not yet obtained international airworthiness certification, over time it could meet the growing demand for single-aisle aircraft domestically. Analyst Xie Haowen stated that by 2030, China is expected to need around 4,800 single-aisle aircraft like the C-919 for regional travel. He mentioned that if the production of the C-919 increases, Commercial Aircraft Corporation of China, COMAC, may gain a share in the market. China buys a lot of gold, supporting near-record high gold prices. From January to March, China's demand for jewelry, gold bars, and coins increased by 16% compared to the previous year. The People's Bank of China has also increased its gold holdings for 6 consecutive months before April. The international gold price reached near historic highs in early May. The reasons behind China's individual and central bank purchases of gold may differ, but they support the near-record high gold prices. The extent of the rise in gold prices is difficult to explain solely based on interest rates, and the actions of global central banks buying gold are behind this situation. After the Russia-Ukraine conflict, central banks in China, Turkey, and other countries rapidly increased their gold reserves and promoted actions to shift to other currencies such as the renminbi. A report by U.S. consultancy Rhodium Group shows that the financial pressure faced by local Chinese governments has limited their fiscal support for economic recovery. Last year, half of China's cities faced difficulties in repaying debt interest. The amount of actual non-performing loans in China from 2020 to 2022, including those with renegotiated financing conditions, reached $76.8 billion, 4.5 times higher than from 2017 to 2019. If problem loans are left unattended, they could potentially pose financial risks to the country. There is news of a sharp drop in Asian petrochemical raw material prices due to sluggish demand in China. China's economic recovery is slower than market expectations, and it may take a long time to eliminate the surplus of petrochemical raw materials. Since the fourth quarter of 2021, China Evergrande Group has been deeply mired in a debt crisis. On May 31, Evergrande Wealth released a statement saying that due to unfavorable capital inflows, the available funds for redeeming wealth management products in May were insufficient to meet the original standards. The scorching weather in May and the relentless heatwave that will continue for several weeks in southeastern China have led to a surge in demand for air conditioning in major Chinese cities, putting immense pressure on China's power grid. According to China's National Climate Center, the average national temperature in May was 16.3 degrees Celsius, which is 0.2 degrees Celsius lower than the same period in previous years. However, 446 meteorological stations across the country recorded daily high temperatures that reached or exceeded historical records for May. In the next 3 days, temperatures in most southern regions of China are expected to surpass 35 degrees Celsius. With such hot weather, using air conditioning poses a risk to polar bears, while not using it makes it difficult to focus on work or study. What do you think should be done in this situation? That's today's news update. I hope you enjoyed it. Remember to like, share, and subscribe to our channel. See you next time. Take care everyone.